No. Don't. Stop it. Shouldn't do that. Well, that was wrong. Well, you made a mistake there. You're a failure. Sound familiar? Hopefully not. But for some of you, that might even be what you imagine God to sound like. Have you ever heard that? That kind of attitude of God? Like God is this bully up there with a magnifying glass, and we're the little ants, and he's just waiting till we walk out of line so he can zap us. This is the attitude that some people get. Yet when I look in the Bible, I don't see that. Especially when I read the words of Jesus and I look over the ministry of Jesus, that's not what's written. So where does that come from? Where does that don't know mentality come from? Is it from the church? Is that what we're saying as pastors? Is that how we're encouraging people as we're pushing people towards an identity of no? They actually did a study and they looked at little children and they found that religious children were more likely to be mean to other children because they so were in this culture of no that they would go around telling kids why they were wrong, what they said that was wrong, what they did that was wrong. Basically what I call the hall monitor mentality. And they were stuck in this identification by what they're not. See, we are Christians, which means we don't drink. We're Christians, which means we don't smoke. We're Christians, which means we don't eat, chew, or hang out with people who do. We're Christians, so we don't party. We're Christians, so we don't live life. We are Christians, so we don't do anything at all. Oh, how great are we? Now, some of those things are probably things that are good not to do. They're great. I mean, if you don't do some of those things, that might be healthier for you. But if you identify yourself by what you don't do, I feel very sorry for you. Because we as Christians, we go out and we love people where they're at. We as Christians, we go take care of the orphans. We as Christians, we take care of the widows. We as Christians, we dance and sing because we have a God that forgave us. We as Christians are people not of not or don't or no, but hopefully we are yes men and women. Don't want to leave you guys, girls out. Has anyone seen the movie Yes Man? Has people seen the Yes Man movie with Jim Carrey? I love that movie. It's ridiculous, and there's some things in it that Jim Carrey ends up doing that are completely inappropriate, and I'm not going to go in there. Hopefully you're not knowing what I'm talking about. But it's an awesome movie with a great moral. See, Jim Carrey starts as this guy who's a no, not doer, don'ter in life. And he walks around saying no to his friends. His friends say, hey, you want to come out? No, I can't come out. I got a lot of work to do. I got that thing. What thing is that? I don't know. I don't have the thing ahead of me, but there's a thing, and I got to do the thing, so I can't do it. Love to go out, but I've got that thing. So he was never going out, never doing anything. Finally, one of his friends, this crazy guy, goes around doing insane things, says, you got to come to this conference. It'll change your life. So he invites him to this conference, this big conference with this guy who comes out after this hype video saying, there's this word that will change your life. And what is the word? That's right. Yes, that's the word that'll change your life. It's like a mix between a motivational speaker and some kind of cult leader. Anyway, so there, Jim Carrey is standing there going around like, this is stupid. But he calls him out. Is there any new people? Of course, Jim, there it is. Okay, so he goes down to him and he says, no is ruining your life. You need to learn how to say yes to everything. And through the hype of the crowd and some circumstances in the situation, eventually Jim goes, okay, yes, I'll say yes to everything. So he goes from that place and he starts saying yes to things. He ends up having a homeless guy where he drives him around town, and next thing he knows, he runs out of gas, and he ends up meeting a girl because of all those circumstances that he wouldn't have met before. Now, it's a movie, and there's a lot of silly things that he does, like he gets drunk and starts a fight with this guy because I think he was hitting on the girl. I don't remember exactly, but it's really funny because, he's with the girl and he's like, okay, but if I win, I get to take that pretty lady to a ball because every pretty lady deserves to go to a ball. Of course, he gets his butt kicked, but he's still having a good time. And I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking, gosh, if we could learn to be people that said yes. Now, in a Christian context, and, we don't say yes to everything. There are certain things that we should probably say no to. But I do think that we say no to far too much. We say no to far too many relationships and opportunities. And if we'd simply just decide, you know what, I'm going to try. I'm going to say yes to some people, some opportunities in my life, then our lives would start to change. And you actually find out later in the movie that Jim only went to one seminar and then went off and did it. And there was other seminars about learning that there are some things you should say no to. That's a man for you. That's it. He was just like, okay, I'll do it. And then we're like going to do it, and we're not even listening. And they're like, oh, but wait, there's instructions. Who needs those? All right. What'd you build? I don't know, but it's a sideways building. All right. We'll call it the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Anyway, so in a Christian context, the saying yes is to saying yes to the voice of God. Saying yes to the things that God is calling us to, even if they're things that are hard, difficult, mysterious, that things that we don't have all the supplies for, things that we can't really do on our own strength, and we're afraid of. But we hear that small voice. Now, we still need to have discernment, so we need to learn when to say no. We need to learn when to just go within our limits, and then that's it. But we also need to learn how to listen to that voice and to go out and make a difference in the community. We need to learn how to listen to God's call. So, yesterday we had a training, and in the training I just was thinking, since it's a training on how to reach out to people, which we do once a month, it's great to see all you guys there. Just kidding, it's fine. But anyway, none of you were there. Anyway, but there was people there, and we just went through this verse by verse. We went through the whole thing because there's so much in this verse that Melissa read. Thank you, Melissa, for doing that. There's so many things in there that are great instructions for how to reach out to people. We're not going to go through all of them here, but I really encourage you to take some time to read through these things and try to apply them to your life because there's some awesome keys of how to live our lives. One of the things that Jesus says is that we should go out 2 by 2 because none of us should go through this alone. We are called to be a community together. When we go out, we're not going out because we're so great and we have all the answers. We're going out because God is great and He has all the answers. And we're actually, and this is one of the coolest things to me, we're taking part in something that really sounds cool in Latin. I don't know, it doesn't really matter that it's in Latin, but it sounds cooler in Latin, so we're going to say it in Latin, okay? Which is the Missio Deo, which just means mission of God. But like I said, it sounds cool in Latin, it sounds official. But it's basically saying that our life is not just about our mission or our purpose, but actually taking part in the mission of God. See, when God calls you and He says, hey, I've called you by name, you are mine, you now are part of my mission. He doesn't just save you, He actually invites you to take part of His mission, which I think is really cool. It's one thing if I had Michael Jordan as my basketball coach. That would be cool. But it would also be cool if Michael Jordan is picking teams and he goes, hey, you're going to be on my team. I want you to play with me. Maybe Michael Jordan is too old, so you guys don't want to play with him. LeBron James, right? He won that last NBA thing, didn't he? I don't know. Didn't watch one game this season. But LeBron James comes up to me and says, hey, I want you to be on my team. Who's in? Okay, we don't have any LeBron James fans. Pick someone that you like, okay? John Denver? Where are we here, people, okay? All right. So anyway, you get to be part of the mission of God. Tim Keller says, the gospel is the good news that God himself has come to rescue and renew all of creation through the work of Jesus Christ on our behalf. And we get to be part of that mission, as it says, alerting people to the reign of God. Alerting people to the fact that God reigns. All right, so let's keep going. They go out to every town and place where they could go. So he would send them out to every town. They didn't just go to the hot spots. They didn't just go to Jerusalem. Now, in the time, the Jewish people, they had a very geographically centered faith. Jerusalem was that holy temple, that city on a hill, that important place to be. And notice he's 72 people, and he doesn't send them all to Jerusalem. He sends them out to Gifford. He sends them out to Fort Pierce. He sends them out even to Vero Beach. I know. Feel bad for those people. But he sends them out everywhere, to every city. Now, in that location, there was all these little small towns. And there, God sent people on the mission. They weren't too small for God. They weren't too small for Jesus to send people towards. He didn't say, no, that's not an important enough community, so I don't care about them. No, he went to them too, and this is for everyone. For everyone to be able to know that God reigns in their life. We have this idea that we're supposed to go up on some hill and deal with some billy goat and a guru who's super skinny because he only eats twigs and berries, and there we'll spiritually grow. But that's not where growth happens. Growth happens when you go out into the community and start loving people where they're at, and then you grow. In fact, I would argue that you grow every time you start to listen to people and hear their stories. There's a pastor, his name is Michael Frost, and he shares this story about the shoe man. This shoe man was a guy who felt like he should be in ministry, but as he thought about it and prayed about it, he decided instead to sell shoes. So clearly he chose the holier profession. As a shoe man, he loved shoes. He knew everything about shoes. So he had this chair in the middle of his store, and when people would walk around, he said, "Can I help you?" And people would say, "No, I'm just looking." He's like, "Well, I was wondering if I could try to see if I could guess what kind of shoe you'd like." Like, what do you mean? Well, what I like to do is I like to listen to your story and just hear your life story, and I bet you I can find a shoe that's perfect for you. So if you'd be willing to sit down with me and just share your life story, I'd be willing to listen. And he says, time and time again, people go and they sit down in the chair and they start telling their story. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes a half an hour, but they just start sharing the story of their life, what makes them them. And sometimes it's this heart-wrenching, deep things that they're just sharing to this shoe salesman. After they're done telling their story, he says, "Okay, if you just wait just a second, I think I have the shoe for you." And he goes and he finds, and he knows shoes so well that he thinks, what shoe would really speak to someone from that background, they would live that life, and he goes up and he gives them their shoe. And he was saying, time and time again, they're there and they're going, "Oh my, that's just the shoe I was looking for." Because they're in this vulnerable place, they just shared their story. And he listened to them and he knew it's a shoe. But who cares, right? For a woman, it's probably bigger. But for a guy, I'm like, it's a shoe. It goes on my feet. I used to have sandals that had tire tread on the bottom of it because they were insured for 20,000 miles. So I knew those would last me a long time. That's all I cared about. But we called them the Jesus sandals. Anyway, so listening to their story was so powerful that they were impacted. Then he could share with them. And he said that these people end up becoming part of his life. And so when he had his wedding was all these different shoes that he put on people's feet at his wedding. Because all his customers were there because now there was that bond, that intimacy. And we sometimes think that we have to have the answers, we have to go out and we have to tell people. It later says in the gospel, he said here, when you enter a house, first say to them, "Peace to this house." Not, "Come to Jesus and repent." Right? No? Not good? Doesn't work, right? No, it's not, you're a sinner and God's going to strike you down. No, peace is kind of the opposite, isn't it? Oh, oops. It's like, take that out of their throats. Sorry about that. Let's go back to the beginning here and share peace with people. And he says, if they share peace with you back, not if they share the proper theological stance on the total depravity of man. No, if they share peace with you, you say, okay, good, let's talk. Now, if they don't, that's another story. But if they're welcoming and they want a conversation, then start a conversation with those people and start to reach out to them. During our gospel minutes, we do different gospel minutes. Mike referenced that. Thanks, Mike. We do the gospel of the day, and one of the gospels of this last week was on the wedding feast, where Jesus was sharing a story about the wedding feast. That this king went out and he invited all these wealthy, fancy, popular people to a wedding, and guess what? None of them came. Because they all thought that they didn't need to come to the party. They had things to do, plans, and they just didn't come. So Jesus went out and or the king went out and started inviting everybody to the wedding party. I don't know about you, but has any of you, and maybe, hopefully I'm not the only one, found out a friend that you're really close to got married and you weren't invited? Has that ever happened to anybody? How does that feel? Not great, right? Pretty bad. I used to, I still am part of a big family, and we used to go to a big church, and so we'd get invited to weddings a lot, especially because my family, we're all dancers, we're performers, and so I actually even overheard someone once say to me, or not to me, to someone else, I overheard someone say, yo, you don't need to hire a DJ, just invite the Demsics. You'll save money and you'll have just as much fun. So, okay, so I got invited to all these weddings, and I loved weddings as a kid, so I loved going, and it was so much fun. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't invited to so many people's weddings, and I understand the limited resources. I'm not trying to judge, but it hurt. It hurt. So when Kate and I got married, I decided that I wanted to invite everybody I could, and Kate, thankfully, felt the same way. So we had this wedding where all these people came, and there was this British couple that my dad had met at the gym. And they were mentioning, as Dad was talking about, yeah, my son's getting married. And he's like, oh, we've never been to an American wedding. Could we perhaps? Yeah, come on down. Yeah, why not? So he invites the couple. So we're there at the wedding, and so I've got a lot of groomsmen, and she's got a lot of bridesmaids. And so they're all kind of crunched together, standing, one after the other. And it's Doy, who's the Marine. Then there's John Peter, who's, John Peter, and Robert, and then all the other guys, okay? So before my wife even starts walking down the aisle, it's about time the music starts playing, and all of a sudden, I start hearing, and I kind of feel it too, because the whole altar is shaking a little bit. I don't know if it's the presence of God or the weeping of my brother John Peter. But I look over, and there sure enough is my brother John Peter, not just sobbing, but literally doing one of these things. I mean, it was either the Holy Spirit or a convulsion or something. Caesar. Yeah, it was either the Holy Spirit or Caesar, but he's, right? And so he's shaking every one of my groomsmen, but only, of course, my Marine brother Doy says anything about it, and I can't say the words that he said because I would never hear about it, and I'd probably never be welcomed back, but it basically was something about, what the is wrong with you? With my boss standing right there, who, if you haven't put it together, is the priest. And sure enough, in this moment, I see my bride, and she starts walking down the aisle, and she's bawling too. And so everybody just starts bawling, and we're all just bawling together. As a community of people crying together. There are people that probably didn't even know me that were crying because everyone was crying. It was just one of those things. And it was the most beautiful moment. Then afterwards, we went to the wedding reception. We were able to invite everyone, and we started dancing and singing and having a good time. And the Barbra Streisand song, we just found out the next day that exists. If you haven't heard that, Barbra Streisand. Do, 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 do. So we're all dancing, and we're having such a great time. And it occurred to me when I was reading about this wedding feast in the gospel that this is what heaven is like. It's a wedding party. It's a feast. It's a celebration of love. It's a celebration of life. This is what it is all about. And I thought about it, and it's a celebration of the union between my wife and I, but it was far more than that because it was the celebration of the community that we were together. It wasn't just about two people. It was about all of us coming together. And that moment, that if my friends weren't there, if my family weren't there, some of you were there, if you weren't there, it wouldn't have been the same event. If my brother John Peter hadn't wept like a little girl, it wouldn't have been the same event. That's the story we're going to remember for the rest of our lives because that's what matters. And we as Christians should be the best party throwers. Our new priest just walked in. They used to call him the party pastor at his last church because he was known for throwing parties. And I love that. That's so great because that's what we should be. We go out into the community and we celebrate that God loves us so much that He is covered over our brokenness and our sin, and we can celebrate that we have new life in Him. That's the party people that we all should be. The Bible is concerned with God's purpose of blessing for all the nations. It is concerned with the completion of God's purpose in the creation of the world. It is not, to put it crudely, concerned with offering a way of escape for the redeemed soul out of history, but with the action of God to bring history to the true end. That was Leslie Newbeni. It's not about you escaping from the world and the corruption of the world. It's about us together going out, being sent out by God, and redeeming the world. To going and sharing the peace of God, peace that surpasses all circumstances and understanding. So as we go out and we are sent on mission with God, the very mission of God, I don't know where God is sending you. I don't know to whom God has called you to, but I know that each of you are not just called because God is good and He loves you, but that you have an opportunity to go and spread those things. One of my favorite parts in Yes Man is this part where, and yes, it's a movie, but there's this part where he had learned to play the guitar. And he goes and he sees that there's a person standing on a building about to jump off. And so at this moment, he's wondering, are the police coming? Surely the police will come. And someone says, no, someone needs to talk him down from the ledge. So he goes up and he's standing on the ledge. You see the guy standing on the ledge. And he goes up, and he's got nothing to say. It's so cool, because he runs up to Jim. Jim runs up. He's standing on the ledge. Okay, this is him on the ledge. And he gets up there, and he goes, hey, man, don't do it. And the guy's like, what do you mean? Don't talk me down. I'm not going to, it's like, I'm going to do it. And he's like, I should probably say something. And he looks back and he sees a guitar. And one of the things that I love about this scene is that they actually have it not where like the guitar is magically tuned. Have you ever noticed that? My wife and I saw a movie recently, and it was 30 years since this guitar is played, and then all of a sudden it's just, right? But no, they actually is tuning the guitar. He's like, and the guy's like, what are you doing out there? And he's like, just give me a second. Hold on a second. But then, sure enough, he comes out on the ledge and he goes, wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. You could cut the ties of all the lies that you have lived in. If you don't want to see me again, I would understand. And then he goes, wait a second, what's the next part? And he can't remember. But the guy, I sing on the secret pain. I know something's wrong. You're the first to find you're way too loud. You're the flashing light from the burial shroud. I know something's wrong. And here's the best part. Everyone I know has got a reason to say. Anybody? Wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend. You can cut the ties of all the lies that you've been living. If you don't want to see me again, I would understand. I would understand. And sure enough, everyone's singing in, and he comes back from the ledge. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, yeah, but that's just a movie. But I'm telling you, the mission of God is one that it does call us onto those circumstances where we can make a difference in people's lives by doing some of the craziest things, like singing to a guy that song on the ledge. I can tell you a story that is exactly what happened to me. Well, not exactly, but close enough. I was going on a walk. And as I was going on a walk, the Missio Deo, the mission of God, started to call to me in the form of saying, no, you're supposed to walk this way, not this way. And I started arguing with myself. I thought it was myself. And I started saying, no, that way's ugly. I don't want to walk that way. I always walk this way. It's got trees. It's beautiful. But I just, no, walk this way, walk this way. So finally, I'm like, fine, I'll walk this way. Still thinking I'm just arguing with myself. So I start walking that way. And as I start walking that way, I see this guy, and if any of you have seen the 90s Don't Do Drugs commercials, and they've always got like the drug dealer, and he's got the hoodie on and everything like that, well, I see a guy that perfectly fits that description sitting on a fence with this hoodie drawn and everything. I can't see his face, and I hear a voice, and this is when I start to think maybe this isn't just me, but this voice in my head starts saying, go talk to that person. I think, what? Why would I go talk to that person? He looks like a gang member, dressed like a gang member, right? But he's, go talk to that person. So I go up. And as I start to walk up, I start to hear crying. And I realize that he's crying. So I say, hey, what's up, man? Are you okay? He goes, leave me alone. And at this point, I know God's called me here. So I don't leave him alone. I say, no. God has called me here. And he looks up at me and he goes, who are you? And this is literally the words that I said. I kid you not. I said, I'm nobody, but I'm here to listen if you want to share. Cheesy, right? That's exactly what I said. I am nobody. Doesn't matter who I am. I'm just a messenger of God, right? I'm here to listen if you're here to share. So he started sharing, and I just listened. I didn't have any answers. I just listened to him, and he started talking about all the problems in his life, all the difficulties in his life. And I just, at the end of it, I was just, wow, man, that's tough. You want to talk about this again sometime? And he goes, yeah, sure. Okay, let's meet in a couple weeks. So we started meeting on a regular basis, and we developed this older brother, younger brother kind of relationship. I still am friends with him to this day. It wasn't until months later that I found out that he had already set aside the plans to end his life that day. You never know what lives you can change when you start listening to the Missio Deo, the Missio Dei, the mission of God. When you start listening to God calling you and sending you out and going and starting to just listen to people and love people what they're at, you'll never know. At the end of this gospel reading, the 72 come back and they're so excited and they say, this is incredible. We've got all this power. God has done all these things through us. And Jesus says, don't get excited about that. Yes, God will give you the supplies you need. God will take care of you. God will bless you. The prosperity gospel people, yeah, maybe they go out on an extreme, but God will take care of your needs. But don't get excited about that. That doesn't matter. Be excited that your names are written in the book of life. Be excited that you're part of the wedding party. And God has given you invitations to go hand out and invite other people to. Be excited that God loves you and He wants you to be part of His family. That's what this is about. God is inviting you to be part of His mission, and His mission is to redeem all of man. So where is God sending you? What community? Are you a shoe guy? Are you someone who's just going to listen to His voice, and when He says turn left, you're going to turn left and run into those situations? I don't know. That's not my job to discern, but I'd be happy if you want to talk about that, to have a conversation about that. We did a training one day here at this community, and a woman that isn't even part of our community, but she just wanted to show up because he felt God was calling her to, got this vision for doing birthdays for orphans through our training. And she called it Birthday Angels. Her name was Angel. And I heard her on the radio, Rhett's radio station just the other day, talking about their ministry and how many birthdays that they've been able to provide for orphans. It's a beautiful ministry. What a unique, special idea. My mother-in-law does a Christian DDP yoga Bible study exercise thing for women. And there's women that have come there that don't feel comfortable in church, but she's been able to bless and make a difference because of DDP, which is, by the way, a WWE or something wrestler. Devin got it. That's right, Devin. See, there's no limitations on what you can do with God if you're willing to listen. But I do believe God is calling each and every one of you to go and make a difference in the community.